see it a third time. So without further ado, please put your hands together for the writer and director of Baby Driver, Mr. Edgar Wright. Now, you've done a million Q&As, but this energy is amazing.
This is going to be the first Q&A ever.
Okay.
To stop and think, oh yes, it's out. And actually, I made it and it exists. So I find that kind of crazy. So it's amazing to actually, and also to be, I come to the cinema all the time, so just the fact that it's here is amazing.
Yeah, it's a special place for sure. And you said, you came up with this idea 20-something years ago. I know you heard the Bell Bottoms song by John Spencer, Blues Explosion, and you thought about a car action scene that could be really cool to that song. So is that something that you've always done, sort of heard music and then thought about cinematic images?
I think it started with that. So 22 years ago, I was 21, I was living in London for the first time, and I was listening to that album, Orange by the John Spencer Blues Explosion, on a dubbed audio cassette. Apologies to John Spencer. I've since bought several copies of it. But I guess it's that thing, it's like, and it's not even necessarily that I was back then, like, even though I had directed my first very no-budget film, I still wouldn't have called myself a film director. I was definitely not in the film business. I was like 21 and broke and in London. But it wasn't something that even consciously was like, this is a movie. It was more like, I can't listen to this song without thinking of this scene. So it's almost like the kind of action movie version of synesthesia. Is like I would listen to the song and I would imagine the scene, and I couldn't listen to the song without thinking about it. So at some point I had to start thinking about what goes with that. And I think sort of around the same time, this is before I'd done Space or Shaun of the Dead or anything, but I always like the idea of doing like action and music together. I'm always a big fan of music in film, whether it's Martin Scorsese or Quentin Tarantino or John Landis, the way that they use like pop music and rock music. We're thinking of a way to sort of take that even further. So then the idea came up, like I was thinking about the scene, and then I thought about the character. I thought, oh, maybe the thing is that the getaway driver is playing the song, and then it became the idea of Baby. This is all pre-iPod as well. So it's the idea of him just basically soundtracking his life. Then when the iPod came out in like 2001, then I think that's the first time. Obviously you had the Walkman and the Discman before that, and I used to listen to music obsessively. It wasn't until the iPod came out that people could start soundtracking their life, where you could really kind of start trying to plan out your moods by what you were listening to, or actually sort of making endless playlists and stuff. And so a lot of things sort of started to come together, and over the years I would sort of just earmark like songs that I wanted to use. So by the time I started writing like 10 years ago, there was a number of things that I sort of, there's one other thing as well, as I had done this music video 15 years ago, which just sort of became like a dry run for the opening scene. And you see a tiny clip of it in the movie. It's this music video I did for a band called Mid Royale, blues song, and it stars Noel Fielding from the Mighty Boosh, which some of you may know that show. It's a little clip of it in the movie. But I did this music video, and I did it, and some people sort of said, oh, it's the film and expansion of the music video. And I was like, no, I already had the idea for the movie, and I used the idea for the music video in desperation, because it was like 11 o'clock the night before, supposed to be handing in a treatment at 9:30 in the morning. I was like, And so I did this video with the getaway driver, and then at the time I thought like I squandered the idea, and I was mad at myself. So I thought, why don't I use this film idea on this little video? And then that ended up being a help, because basically like over like 15 years, it kept coming around that video. And then finally, when I started trying to pitch the film, I had one thing that was in a similar tone. I had stuff with my own work. I had something that was actually on the same subject. I guess the other thing that happened, like sort of in that time, so it's so funny, some of the songs in this movie, I've been thinking about putting into this movie for like over a decade. And then you kind of quietly, you never mention them to anybody, especially other directors. Because you don't want any of them to turn up in another film. I had this really funny conversation earlier this year with James Gunn, who's a friend of mine, who directs Guardians of the Galaxy. And we were texting back and forth about something, and I said, I suddenly have a panic that songs that I have in Baby Driver are going to be in Guardians of the Galaxy too. And this is a DM conversation we had on Twitter, and he said, well, do you have any ELO in your movie? And I said, no. He said, do you have any Barry White in your movie? And he said, no. He said, do you have a Fleetwood Mac in your movie? I said, no. And then it just went on like that, so we sort of established. And we were so cagey about it, neither of us would say the song. So there'd be that thing, like, sort of, it's like, literally, like, I sort of thinking, like, Hocus Pocus would make a great song for an action movie. Never tell anybody about it.
Well, I love, obviously, the opening scene is so spectacular to watch. I also love the scene with Baby walking down the street, done in one shot, because I always feel like that when I put on my headphones, that I'm sort of walking along to the music and being super cool. I'm not really in reality, but, you know, I always wonder with this film, do you see it as it's from Baby's perspective, as in when you put headphones in or listen to music, you see everything choreographed to music, or is it more like a heightened reality where everything is happening to music?
Well, I think the idea is that you are sort of seeing it through his eyes and hearing through his ears. You know, it is a film where, like, he is in every scene. It's not like sort of, I mean, it's, you know, in comparison to maybe some other kind of, you know, heist thrillers and stuff, there's no, like, scenes with anybody else. There's no scenes with the police. There's no scenes with any other characters. You're always with Baby, so you're seeing it purely from his perspective. And I guess the idea is with the start of the movie, at least, it's kind of like the coffee run is like the perfect world version of it. And that's kind of the last time in the movie, really, where everything, I mean, maybe the laundromat as well, but there's moments of, like, everything is, like, sort of in beautiful, like, sort of, all the planets are in alignment. Like, the music is perfect and the tone is perfect. But even in that coffee run scene, you know, like when he goes out to follow Lady James up the street and then there's a cop there and then he kind of is more panicked on the way back. And that's sort of what the movie is in terms of, like, him listening to the music, he's escaping in his head and, like, uses the music as an escape, he uses the music to escape, but then it is also a bubble and, like, the realities of crime are there to sort of pop that bubble, and that's what's going to happen by the end of the movie is that, you know, the music is taken away from him, or, like, you know, so it's really about sort of starting the movie in this kind of, like, his perfect kind of existence, and then the realities of the job that he is doing are there to kind of bring him down.
So I'm going to open it up to you guys if you have any questions that you'd like to ask Edgar up down the front. Just yell it and then I'll repeat it.